Your favorite or soon to be favorite place for the hottest sports news, the wildest viral topics, and conversations guaranteed to make you laugh. Tonight we're hosted by Jackson Dart 1 and 1.
What's going on, late entry family?
And as always, you got your boy RBF Kyle. Um, we'll get right into it. Basically, Spencer was right. Double dose had had the script, man. He called it. He said that anybody could jump into the Niners offense and make it successful. And damn it, Mac Jones just made the offense successful for the Niners with no wide receivers on Thursday and just Christian McCaffrey. And just Christian McCaffrey is an understatement, but nonetheless, he had nobody out there, and he still won 26-23 over the Rams. A very formidable team to go against. Um, I think I'm impressed. I'm impressed by him. I'm impressed by Shanahan. Like that guy can really coach anybody. And I mean, I'm starting to reel on all my Brock Purdy opinions. How you feeling, Toph?
Well, let's not just completely kill Brock Purdy yet. I do think Shanahan has, a very good system. Every head coach in the league has a system. Let's just start off with that. But let's not forget Mac Jones was a first round pick. His first year in New England, he did make the Pro Bowl. He did look really good. And then you had the whole debacle was just starting him, sitting him, putting in Bailey Zapp. Like they did play musical chairs with him. And of course, we always say with the young quarterback, the development, that does, stunt their growth. So he kind of had to go to the backup role. I think he went to, was it Jacksonville last year? Got into some relief games, but, at the end of the day, he was a first round pick. I do think, I'm not going to say everybody, most quarterbacks can pilot the Shanahan offense. There's a difference between you being able to pilot it and you be able to really dial it in. Shanahan, he is like his dad. He does use that West Coast play action style. That is, how he's also doing that forever. He does like a smart quarterback. You don't have to be, athletic. You used to be able to, make the reads, go with the progression, find the open man, because he's going to scheme up open receivers. Um, and who also did Mac Jones have in New England? He had Kendrick Bourne, who, as you saw, he had a career day. They have chemistry. He looked for him, often. At all times, he said, "Okay, I got to make a play. I'm gonna go to KB. I know him. We got a rapport." So I think both quarterbacks definitely play well in this system. But you could start to make a case as is Mac Jones a better option, just piloting in the offense than Brock Purdy? You could say talent wise, he probably has, the better skill set than Brock Purdy. Maybe a stronger arm, not by too much, but you've seen the two games that, Mac Jones has played. He has done everything that's been asked for him. He's 1-1 to go into, LA, beat the Rams, at their stadium prior to the game. That is hard to do. I mean, they were
Hmm.
literally 1 yard away from Kyrie Williams, walking to the end zone and ending the game. And he had that immaculate punch out by the rookie. Forgot his name, but Rook, he made a hell of a play right there, man. Kudos to you. And then to go into OT, I remember like the whole time they would like show a picture of like Mac Jones. I don't know if he was getting a massage by somebody. Like I said, he took some shots that game as well too. Stood in there, completed the whole game. He was dialed in, man. So you got to get some props to Mac Jones.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, yeah, I saw a skit actually of somebody saying basically like he was acting as like the Niners front office and he's like, "Hey Mac." They're like, "Yeah." And Mac's like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "Come into our office." And Mac's like, "All right, yeah, that's cool." And then as soon as he gets in the office, he's like, "Everything's fine, everything's cool." Man, stop playing so good. Everyone's gonna figure out. Everyone's gonna figure out our plan, and that we know that Shanahan could have turned hot garbage into a quarterback. Like if you start playing good like this, they're gonna call for Brock Purdy's job, and they're gonna question why we didn't keep some key players that we could have kept. And I'm sitting here like, huh? Maybe the Niners could have kept some of those key players, like Debo, freaking Samuel, like, who is balling
Yeah,
for the Commanders right now.
Debo's playing, and then I do have, memory serves everybody. There was a big trade, that happened. It's supposed to be Trey Lance commanding that offense, not Brock Purdy. They were in the same draft, and I didn't realize, there's a lot of moving parts. I'm not gonna give you guys every single detail. What trade got what with this pick? That's a whole lot doing it. I'm just gonna give you guys the cliff notes in there. So the Niners gave up 3 first-round picks, 2021, 2022, 2023, and the third-round pick in 2023. I'm going to give you the players that ended up, panning out of those picks. And then between those picks, traded with the other teams, I'm going to give you the other players that were part of that. That's like, oof, that looks pretty bad overall. So 2021 first-round pick actually ended up being Micah Parsons. It was a Cowboy.
Mm,
Now he's a Packer. You can see this guy's all pro, all world, hell of a player. 2022, another hell of a player. Sometimes some people call this guy the best DB in the game. He's definitely top five. Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. Hell of a DP. That guy can play. On the third round pick is Channing Tindall. I think he's a linebacker from the Dolphins. I'm sorry, I don't really know too much about you. But shout out to Channing Tindall. In the 2023 first round pick ended up being Brian Breeze, D tackle down there
oh
at New
yeah.
Orleans. So like I
Yeah.
said, just out of those picks alone, a lot of good players. Now, honorable mentions. I'll break this down by teams. These picks gave the Eagles Devontae Smith and Jordan Davis. The Broncos got Bradley Chubb from a trade. This also developed into a Dylan Waddle draft pick. Kenyon Green was a lineman for the Texans. I don't think he's on the team anymore. I think he got traded. Never really panned out too well. But the whole aftermath of that trade, from start to finish, it's not even just the Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. It's what you gave up. Just those 3 picks, first round picks. First round picks, they're like gold. You got to land those picks. Those are teams like the Lions, who wherever they draft. Also, I just got to say this. This is completely off topic, but think about the running back position. I remember sitting down in that draft, and when the Lions took Jameer Gibbs, I remember literally watching the draft. They said, "Whoa, what was this pick?" People shunned that pick so much, and I know
I
she's one of
did.
the biggest
I
line.
was one
See,
of them.
there you go.
Yep.
Me, not so much. Um, Granted, yes, I know, running back picks aren't, they don't have value, but you can't tell me that guy in the Lions, he's just about as big as impact as Penny Sewell. Well, it was a really good pick, but he didn't start out good. But he took some L's, got blown up on some plays, and he's looking good. You gotta have a running back. The Lions, or not, sorry, not Lions. Falcons took Bijan Robinson. As a
Hmm.
Longhorns fan, I was doing backflips. I was happy. Like I said, those key players, those first round picks, people have picked them for a reason. So whether if it's running
Right.
back, these people like you have to hit those first round picks. And for you to trade 3 of those picks, that's huge because you could have got younger. If you didn't have to pay Purdy 60 mil, you could have kept what you said, Debo Samuel. Um, the players you could have done a lot more with that. So like I said, that's definitely a big fumble. And of course, we all know they say it ad nauseum that the Brock Purdy pick is what kept Shanahan and John Lynch their jobs.
True. True. I mean, yeah. I mean, he was basically riding on thin ice with Garoppolo and Trey Lance. I mean, he got saved by Mr. Irrelevant in a
Yeah,
weird way, because Mr. Irrelevant decided to figure out his offense. That's
and
something that I think people forget. But
yeah, and that's why I'm not going to say that he's doing not doing a good job. I mean, he got you to championship game rookie year, got hurt, couldn't finish it. Who knows? They could have potentially got to the Super Bowl. Then he got to the Super Bowl. Now, granted, he didn't win it. Like I said, as a seventh round pick, you don't get too many seventh round picks that end up starting. Tom Brady, I think he was sixth round pick. He's probably not the closest
mhm.
one. Those are two totally different people. Like I said, I think you got to put some respect on Purdy's game. I'm not saying he's the best, but for what he's been asked to done, he's done his job.
Absolutely. No, I don't think we're calling for his job here
Mm-mm.
on Late Entry Podcast, but it is insane how good Mac Jones has
Yes.
looked.
And then in that draft, it was, rumored that they wanted to get Mac Jones originally. And it's
Yeah,
funny
he
that
got.
he's on the team. Now you're
I
seeing what
know.
this is what could have been. Then if you'd have had him, of course you'd have lost that first round pick. But you had 2022, 2023. You had a lot more ammunition to, fill some other holes that you might have seen now. You didn't have back then.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Yeah. I mean, Mac Jones' entire career might be looking different if he was drafted by
Oh yeah,
the
hundred
Niners
percent.
back then. Um, Leading into our next topic, speaking of falling into the right place, Emeka Egbuka has completely fallen into the right place as a receiver, playing with Tampa Bay. Chris Godwin being down was probably the best thing that happened to him. Mike Evans went down and was out today, and he was basically the only receiver on the field. Chris Godwin was back, but he's recovering. Egbuka gets 25 fantasy points this week. This guy is the real freaking deal, and he's just a rookie. Like, this is somebody, like, I knew he was good when he played for Ohio State. He had a couple of really good seasons there. I did not expect this quick of production this fast. How do you feel, Toph?
Yeah, like I said, as a resident Ohio State fan,
Yes, sir.
I've seen Buka play basically his entire career. And chat, correct me if I'm wrong. They could kill me in the comments if I get this part wrong, but I'm pretty sure he is a leading receiver in Ohio State history, and he probably will be for. I don't think he'll ever do that because he's played there, pretty much his whole entire career. Um, he's just like I don't want to say a perfect receiver, but if you think about what the receiver position entails, running routes, knowing when to sit down, keep going, things that you can't really teach, just like IQ. He does everything perfectly. He's not a burner, but he's got good hands. He's just smart. Like, he's just excellent at playing the receiver position. It's kind of like when a little bit off topic here again, but Jordan Addison. When Kirk Cousins was still there, he was saying that he's probably the most complete receiver that he's ever had in his career. I'm not saying he's better than Justin Jefferson. They're two different types, but just playing the receiver position in general, he gets it. He knows it. He had a stellar career. He won the Blitnikoff at Pittsburgh when he was there. He transferred to Ohio State. USC his last year, but like I said, he's played forever. He knows what to do. And Abuka landed in a good position because we were saying earlier in the pre-show, I was like he's got Mike Evans who's going to be the one, Godwin the two. You just put Abuka at the three, but she kind of thrived at Ohio State. Having people like Garrett Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. You're going to get some good looks. One on one. He's going to eat, and now he's kind of done the same thing, but he's being the number one in Tampa there, and I'm pretty sure every week, you know, he's had at least a touchdown. Probably putting up at least probably what 15 plus fantasy points every week,
Every
and
week.
it's just
Yep.
been every week. This guy's even hurt, still out there, putting it on there. He's not even 100%. But yeah, Buka, man, I got to tip my hat, man. I should have drafted you when I saw your name. I didn't take you. I took T Mac instead, so I got to hold that
Yeah,
L as a
facts.
resident Ohio State fan. All due respect to myself.
And same here. I almost felt like Jake announcing how he wanted to draft him made me be like, it gave me a little stink about it. Like, I don't know if he'll do it. And of course, Jake had to trade him to Spencer of all people, so Spencer gets to reap all the benefits
One
of
of
that
those
pick.
typical Spencer Fleece trade jobs.
Yeah, he fleeced that so hard. That unreleased episode where Spencer fleeced Jake. Tune into our Patreon, and you guys will find it.
Y'all got to stop trading with that man. Make him work for these trades.
Yeah, never trade with Spencer. That's the moral of the story. Well, he's not on the podcast. I can say that. Uh, I actually have trade R worded him a couple of times. So I'm the last person that should be saying that. Um, but yeah, no, Emeka Egbuka is kind of that, like, how did we not see this coming pick? Like, he jumped into a situation with a hurt wide receiver 2, older wide receiver 2, and an old wide receiver 1. Like, the guy's been in the league for so long. You can't expect both of them to stay healthy, and one of them was already unhealthy. So Baker's got to go somewhere, right? And
Yeah.
Baker's been as successful as he is. So I feel like this was a miss on my part, not seeing how good he would be. But I got to give the kid his props, and I got to give the Bucks their props too, because coming into the season, they were probably power ranking 10, and they're showing themselves as potentially being a top 5 team.
No, definitely. I mean, like I said, the Bucks, man, they just, each and every week, they grind it out, pause. Um, but when you got Baker at the helm, who has the, do or die, attitude, he's never gonna quit. They've been in pretty much, every single game, even against the Eagles, they very well could have been a different outcome. A couple mistakes in the game lost it. Like I said, Abuka, each and every week, doesn't matter what DB he goes against, what team, what defense, he does his job, to a T. Like I said, Abuka is the real deal. I can't remember how many receivers went in front of him. I know T Mac, he was the first one. And I guess you could say Travis Hunter as well too, but he's a unicorn. But especially when you draft that low, you always go for like upside. T Mac is a 6'4", demon jump ball. You look
Hmm.
at the Patriots, sorry, not Patriots, Panthers. They didn't have that big target guy. You still had Adam Thielen at that time, Xavier Leggett, Hunter Renfro. Like you didn't really have a tall guy, so it made sense to go with a taller guy possession. Bryce Young, he's a small guy. Kind of give somebody that unique easy target he could see. It made sense. I think Abuka might have been a second receiver. I can't think of it at the top of my head,
I
but
think you're right. I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think Abuka was a second receiver. So, like I said, he was never, rated higher than T Mac in like the pre-draft. But like I said, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I mean, he's still a good person, but he probably in a better position if he went to Carolina. Who knows what happened?
Matthew Golden. That was the other one.
Yeah, there we go. I forgot about the Golden Boy. So, I mean, yeah, third receiver, you could have went either or with him or Golden, but
Absolutely.
no, no, I think he's in a really good spot. He's in Florida, good weather. You get to get out of the Ohio State weather, so I'm sure he ain't complaining about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, yeah. I think he's such a good guy. I mean, he is such a good guy at just like feeling where his DB is and just getting open off it. Like, he's got that like St. Brown gene. I think he's going to be one of the more consistent guys we see coming
I mean,
coming
yeah,
down the stretch.
faster than State Brown as well too. I don't think he's as tough
Exactly.
as he is.
True.
Ooh, I mean, I
True.
don't know who's a better route runner. I'd probably say St. Brown, but like I said, both those
Egbuka's
guys
got
are really good.
Egbuka's got time, yeah, to keep
Yeah.
building it. Yep. Moving on to our stunner tonight, the Patriots win over the Bills. Stephon Diggs gets his revenge game. Um, Josh Allen proves yet again that he just happens to fold when he faces the Patriots. He goes ape on every team in the league, and then he faces New England, and he's like, I'm gonna put up about 20 and hope my defense can carry me. Um, James Cook still looked good tonight, but just did not look as good as he's looked all year. Right? He didn't carry the
Hmm.
team like he could all year prior to tonight. Um, I really think that Drake May is him. Uh, I think he's got that gene, and Stephon Diggs is living it up with Cardi B on a yacht somewhere tonight. So I hope they're having a good time. I'm proud of the Patriots for pulling out that win. And now we got no undefeated teams left in the NFL because Philly lost earlier today and Bills lost tonight. Let's go. league's wide open.
Yeah, I feel like overall, much like I said, this game was, not my normal cup of tea. I'm more of the absolutely no defense play, just touchdown every single drive. I want to see 100 to 101. It's the final score for me.
Absolutely.
But this is one of those, classic Bills, Patriots division matchup. Sometimes it could be hit or miss. There's definitely been some times that the Bills absolutely blew the Patriots out the water. This one's a bit different. You're literally at home. Riding guy, you just saw the Eagles lose. You're like, okay, we're the last undefeated team, quote unquote. You could say we're the best team in the league right now. And for you to don those absolutely icy, all white jerseys and to lose to them is all due disrespect in itself. But it's never a good thing when Josh Allen is your leading rusher on the team. This team looks a whole lot more different when James Cook is rolling. Um, yeah, it's never a good thing to have Josh Allen have about half as many carries as James Cook, but a bit more
Mm-hmm.
yards than him. I just feel like the receiving core for the Bills, we all know it's no, it's not the greatest, but people like Dalton Kincaid, Khalil Shakur, and Keon Coleman, they have talent. But I feel like I've yet to see, other than the game against the Ravens, when like Keon Coleman looked really good. You see, he's getting all these targets, but it's just not, equating to what I feel like his talent should be. I don't know if that's just him and Josh not on the same page. What their scheme is, because in the red zone he's definitely getting the targets, but this guy is a 50-50 demon. Even this time at Michigan State and Florida State, they were going go balls to this guy. I do think he's got to get a bit more involved in there. But at the same time, let's not take away from the Patriots. They did their thing. Mike Vrabel, the ultimate Patriot. I do think he is the right guy for this team. Ever since they got him, the team's been rejuvenated. They got the energy, they got their moxie. You know, this is a good way to follow up your beatdown from the Panthers and be one of the best teams in the league, especially at their home field. You got to
Mm-hmm.
be feeling good. Also did not run the ball that well today. This was really all Stephon Diggs. He had 10 catches for a buck 46, and literally everybody else either had 2 or 3 catches. The guy had 12 targets. Drake May was finding him often. He had the half the yards that Drake May had went to Stephon Diggs. So as you see, the game plan was Stephon Diggs used to be Buffalo Bill. You could say you helped pole vault to Josh Allen's career. Go ahead and get your get back today. But yeah, tip my hat to the whole Patriots team, offense, defense, special teams. Y'all enjoy this one. You earned that win
Yeah, go pop a bottle of champagne on Diggs.
there. He's got it too.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, that was a definite get back by him, and he earned it. He really did. Moving on to our next topic here, we're moving into college football. Uh, we're calling for James Franklin's job here. I think I'm gonna
Yes.
let Toph start us off. Go ahead.
Also, just so you know, college football is king. I'm sorry this is Sunday, but college football is still college football.
It's still what it
Um,
is.
I had to say that part there. Um, James Franklin, man. Where do I begin? First of all, I like James Franklin, as a person. I don't wish, anything, ill about the guy for sure, but you've been at Penn State for a very long time. Before this season started, there was, talks about them should be the number one rated team in the nation. And I thought that was kind of crazy. I get it. You have a lot of people coming back, especially your key parts of your team. Drew Aller came back. Katron Allen came back. Nick Singleton came back. Those are two really good running backs, probably the best, running back duo in all of college football. Both these guys, if you were to put them on the NFL team, they'd be starters and they'd be putting up numbers. Both those guys are immensely talented. Drew Aller and whoever the OC for Penn State. So I don't know you. Actually, what? Your name doesn't matter. You're irrelevant.
Let him
I'm
know.
I'm, I'm not the biggest Aller fan, but they've looked bad. In every big game, they come up short. That has to be an indictment on your quarterback, coaching staff, but most importantly, the head coach. You have not beaten a top 25 team, definitely not top 10, probably since I think like 2015, 2016. You know, every year you get the Penn State whiteout. They hype this team up so much. And every single year, you falter. You never win the games that, first of all, you're not supposed to win, which is a mark of a good team. And the games that you're supposed to win, you need to do it in convincing fashion. There hasn't been a single game this year where Penn State just said, okay, start to finish, we got this game. Don't leave anything up to chance. I've also been told. You never know what could happen. And for you to lose to UCLA, of all teams, or not too long ago, where Nico was talking about, I need some, time away from my mental. And he had an absolute day. 3 touchdowns rushing, 2 passing, as bad as UCLA looked. You went into UCLA, wasn't at home, but you cannot lose to that team when you're favored by 24 and a half points. And this is literally what I was just saying last week on Sunday show. What's the history between John Harbaugh and James Franklin right now? Harbaugh always losing in the playoffs. Granted, everything's not always your fault, but you're the head coach. You know, everything rides on you. The players play, but every year it's something different. You got Lamar, MVP, talent. If we're playing games on paper, you'd say, yes, probably the most talented team, in the league. Penn State, you got all these great players coming back. You had the Tyler Warrens last year. Every single time the fans think this is our year, it always fails. And that it has to be a point in time when you got to think, is the message that's being told the players is not resonating anymore? Is the fire, the passion? It's not there. We just saw the Giants. As soon as Jackson Dart got in there, his first touchdown, man, was Ike did his dance. You just see the team around him. You know, they get similar energized. It makes you play harder. You want to rock with your team. There's just a point where I gotta think, James Franklin, man, your message is not getting across anymore. You've had a lot of time. I'm not saying that you gotta, stop being a head coach, but your time at Penn State, it should come to an end after this year, because you still got Ohio State at the shoe, and very next week you got to go against Indiana, who's been a complete dark horse this team. Uh, Mendoza's got their team rolling. Who would have thought Indiana, seventh ranked team in the nation? In my lifetime, I've never seen
Mhm.
Indiana be good. But that team looks, shockingly good right now. And I don't see you beating either of those two teams. So that's going to be 4 losses. They're out of the playoffs. All your seniors, what more do you have to play for? At this point, it's draft stock. You got to think, is this going to hurt or is it going to help my draft stock in there? You all came back to play for the national championship, get a chance. If you lose those, you're probably already out now. The UCLA loss is awful. And that if you lose against Ohio State, Indiana, you're cooked. There's no more playoffs in there. So with that being said, Mr. Franklin, it's time to pack your bags, man. Time to look for a new job.
I don't disagree with you. I I don't know. It's similarly to how I was thinking on the Baltimore idea last week. I'm
Mm,
like, give the guy some time, but Franklin doesn't have that time. Franklin doesn't
he's had time.
deserve the Jim. Yeah, he doesn't deserve the John Harbaugh time. Um, shit. Hire Keegan Michael Key. Maybe he'll be better.
Yeah, like I said, I
I
don't know who would go there, but there's so many, talented, coordinators, whether it's from, NFL,
yeah. I don't
other
have
teams.
the
It's a
answer,
revolving door.
but I know that he's not it. Like
Yep,
he isn't gonna do it. You know. Um,
agree.
he's done a good job, but Drew Eller is too good of a quarterback to be losing to UCLA. Come on.
Is he good though?
I think he's pretty good. I
I don't think so. There's
that's
nothing
fair.
that I've seen him play. I've seen him play last year, this year. Nothing just like screams at me like, "Woof," that throw. I mean, only thing he has going for him is NFL size. He's a really tall player.
True.
He has the build, but I just don't see a match where he gets paired with the right head coach, right was coordinator. I just don't see just like the raw talent from the guy. Where I'm like, I had to get this guy.
No,
I could be
I
wrong, but
can
right now I just don't see it at all.
I see where you're coming from completely. The big thing that's gotten me is that he gets himself into games, like he gets himself back into games, and I'm like, oh wow, this guy's got heart. That being said, a lot of those games where he gets himself back in, he
He
usually
turns it over.
loses. Yeah,
Yes.
he ends up like blowing it. So, um, I mean, that's something you probably can't coach out of a kid. So,
Hmm.
we'll, I mean, we'll see if Drew Aller ends up making it, and if he ends up even being the Penn. I mean, there's a bunch of Penn State fans calling for his backup to take
I don't
his
know who the
job
backup
even
is.
before the season. I don't know his name, but yeah, they've been calling for his job before the season even started for him. So, um, yeah, Penn State is a ruthless fan base.
Yeah. I mean, they're right down the street from the Eagles. These are,
True,
rabid, rabid fans. They expect to
true.
win. And like I said, it feels bad because they've had, some good talent come their way. Jahan Dotson, Saquon Barkley, Miles Sanders, Tyler Ward. You've had a lot of good teams
Micah
in there.
Parsons. Yep.
Yeah, Michael Parsons, like I said, it's just unfortunate that it's never turned out into, a championship, not even close to one. And that's the most,
Mm-mm.
that's the part I hate because I love a whiteout. I always think back against that game against Michigan, like the very first play. Um, who was the quarterback? Oh,
McNamara,
no, no,
McCarthy.
no, not McNamara. Um, Dang, I can't think of it, but literally, very first play, they played the Mo Bamba, and he couldn't hear the snap count. Like that's like when I think of Penn State, I think of those ones. I'm just like, dang man, fan base is rocking. Every single week they rock the team. It's unfortunate that they have not been able to get past that hump there.
No,
But I feel for him.
yeah, I feel for Penn State for real. They've been the younger brother in the Big Ten for way too long,
Yep.
but they also kind of earned it. Sorry, Sandusky. Anyways,
True.
that leads us into our next topic. When is enough enough? A
I'm
new
sorry.
topic started by late entry, decided by your boy RBF Kyle. Uh, when is enough enough? This is to talk about coaches that
Oh,
should
really
just
quick,
quit.
Shea
Yeah.
Patterson. That was the name. Yeah, shout out Shea Patterson, man.
Shout out Shea Patterson.
One of the most infamous clips. Okay, go ahead. I had to do it.
That was awesome. When is enough enough, Toph? Jesus. Um, so this is for basically we're talking about coaches, players, anybody who we think that their career should have just ended 4 years ago, and we're just gonna bet on their downfall from here. Essentially, um, Spence, you'll probably hate this topic, but we're gonna run with it. Toph and Kyle approved. Viewer tested.
This is the two-man topic. We're gonna strong arm
That's
this in here.
that's right. So when is enough enough? Three we're gonna hit on today. I'm gonna start with Bill Belichick. When is enough enough, Bill Belichick? You have a girlfriend under her 30s. You have seven or six. Sorry, he would be mad if he even knew I messed that up. You have six Super Bowls, a girlfriend under 30, and everything you want in life. Why are you coaching North Carolina? Why through a 0 and 4th season? What is going on? When is enough enough?
Just crazy to say this is literally, the very first year. But you're hired just because of his name. What he's done in the league. Arguably, the greatest, NFL coach, NFL head coach of all time. So you got to think just by pedigree alone, he deserves a shot. But NFL and college are two totally different, animals. This isn't where you're drafting players. You got free agency players that are already developed. College, you got to go recruit those guys. You're
True.
already, this just old guy that, even towards the later ends of his time in New England, says like how does can Bill relate to all these young players? You had Tom Brady for all this time. Then you got all these transfer quarterbacks, Gio Lopez out of South Alabama, Max Johnson, who literally played everywhere. He was at LSU at one point in time. You've literally had revolving door of quarterbacks every single week, and you talk about stunning growth. I mean, you're the one that stunted Mac Jones' growth. You could say that you were carried by Tom Brady. Have you ever developed a quarterback? You had Drew Bledsoe, he got down, then you got Tom Brady. A lot of ex-Patriots say, the Patriot way, wasn't really a thing. It was Tom Brady's way. Um, it's like I said, yeah, I just do not see how Bill Belichick can turn around North Carolina, who's primarily a basketball school, but it's still a D1 program. You are in the ACC, a very respected program, and for you to go, you're not under, you've won a game, but it was against a team that you should easily win, you know, and for you to just get destroyed by Clemson just a couple of days ago, who Clemson they're looking bad as well too. Um, but yeah, you got to think, should Bill have just walked away from the game, say the NFL Network, do some endless work, the coaching time might have just passed you by, respectfully.
Yeah, I mean, it, funny enough, you mentioned Clemson because that hey, that guy's on the hot seat too. I mean, when is enough for that guy, right? Um, I I can't believe that Bill is still in action, let alone like trying to be a competitive member of the coaching community. Um, he is a great coach, and he will always go down as that. He's got to stop tarnishing his legacy. So when is enough enough? Dabo Swinney, when is enough enough? Yeah, you beat North Carolina. Yeah, you beat a. Who else did they beat that was kind of soft? I can't remember. But
Oh, anybody else really? 'Cause you
outside
lost
of
to
outside of
LSU,
yeah, outside
lost to
of
Syracuse.
yep, lost to Syracuse. When is
Yeah,
enough, Dabo Swinney? Get the hell out of the coaching seat, man. Let somebody who actually gives a shit about his program take over. What the hell are you doing, man? Where's your grit? Where's your fire?
yeah. So really quick, they lost week one LSU. Week two, you beat Troy barely, you won by 11 points.
Jesus Christ.
Week three, you lost to Georgia Tech 24-21. Next week, you lost to Syracuse 34-21. Wasn't even close. And then the very next week, you beat North Carolina. But like I said, Bill Belichick is on the hot seat. They've looked awful. You won 38-10. You should have won that game by, probably even more than that. Um, Funny enough, that was really the first game that Cade Klubnik looked, like the Cade Klubnik that we expected. 22 for 24, 4 touchdowns. He did his thing. And, sadly enough, I picked Clemson to win the Natty before the season started. All due respect to myself once again. The biggest thing about Dabo, it's his ego, man. Just in the week when it's LSU, like your press conference, you're deflecting blame, taking shots at the other team. When you yourself said that, you're stuck in your ways, you don't believe in the NIL transfer portal, you got to get with the times, old man Dabo. You cannot just, stack your team with having, Deshaun Watson, Shoes Watson leaves. Now you got, Trevor Lawrence, you cannot have these stacked teams anymore. You know, I'm not going to sit behind somebody when I could go somewhere else, maybe not Clemson, I could go somewhere, start, get some NAL money, and start my career. You have to adapt with the times for you to just completely, shun the transfer portal and just mock it. You're not playing today's college football. College football today is not the college football of yesterday. It is always a revolving door. You gotta update your resume, update your style, whether it's doing TikTok dances, whatever you gotta do. Recruit these players, hit the transfer portal. This is why people like Indiana have gotten so good so quickly. Because that team hit the portal when they got the new head coach. He understood, the game. So Dabo Swinney, if you can't, suck up your ego, swallow your pride, whatever you want to say, you're gonna keep losing. I'm not gonna go to Clemson if you're gonna, blatantly disrespect, today's game. You don't have my best interest at heart. It's all about you. You know, Clemson, they've had their time, but until you get right or they find a new coach, I don't see, the shit being written down there in Clemson.
And I feel like that goes with any coach of any team at a college or NFL level. The second you start making it about you is the second your team starts to lose, you know?
Yep.
Um, and I feel like a lot of those ACC, SEC guys have started to kind of make it about them. Kellen DeBoer, you're not out of the question. You'll be on this segment in a couple of weeks. In the
After two big
meantime,
wins,
he'll
he's
be a
he's kind of gotten off mine just a little bit. He ain't all the way off, but he's
he
saved
yeah
himself.
he you're right
He
you're
bought
right.
him some time.
Alabama fans are tough, so
Mm.
I'm keeping my eyes open. But the big one we're calling out this week is Zach Taylor, Cincinnati Bengals head coach. Just got beat today 37-24 to the Lions. Should have been an even bigger beat up, but we did what we did. Um, to me, like, if Zach Taylor has a losing record this year, I guess you can blame it on Joe Burrow injuries, but for the most part, he's done it even when Joe Burrow wasn't injured. So to me, it's about time that Zach Taylor gets the boot if he doesn't have a winning season this year, and it's not looking good.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow went down week 2 against Jaguars, right?
Yep, midweek
Okay,
two.
that's what I thought. Yep. So like I said, you squeaked by the Browns with Joe Burrow. I don't remember exactly what quarter Joe Burrow went down against the Jaguars, but you barely got out of there 31-27. But ever since that, when you had good old Browning, started the full game for the Vikings, an absolute disaster. Probably one of the worst games I've ever seen a quarterback play. You followed it up by losing to the Broncos 28-3. Lions 37-24. I remember saying, in our own group chat, literally the moment Joe Burrow went down, I said, it might be time if you want to compete this early on in the season. We talked about people like, Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins, Jameis Winston, like, getting a veteran, that's proven that, if you still want to try to compete, maybe make the playoffs, it's probably time to, start looking some options. And after that Vikings game, I said, yeah, very next day, you got to get on the phone. You got to get somebody. And ever since then, it's looked worse and worse and worse. And, next up, you got Packers, Steelers, Jets, Bears, Steelers again, Patriots, Ravens, Bills. You just said winning record. You're already 2-3. Quarterback play is not looking good. You're not running the ball. Defense has actually been surprisingly better than I would have thought.
Mm-hmm.
Especially today against the Lions. Like I said, it's hard to keep playing good for the entire game when the offense isn't rolling. You're putting your defense back out on the field so early without any rest. Any defense is going to get tired to look bad. You can't play at your full power if the offense isn't, patrolling the clock. That's common sense there. But just have to look at the schedule. No, I don't see any possible way that you can have a winning record. And Joe Burrow's been pretty much hurt every year for probably like the past 3 to 4 years. You at this point, you got to think he's injury prone. I have to find, a backup quarterback, probably on the higher side, It's because Burrow's already missed, seasons, long stretches. You don't need a guy for just, 3 to 4 games. You might have a guy that, I might need it for the rest of the season. I hate to say that, but at this point, it's become, reality. This is not just an accident anymore. He has a history of being injured as good as he is. You have a lot of money tied up in 3 players. And if one of those guys goes down, that's basically her whole team. You decided to
Mm-hmm.
pay, which granted they deserve that money. I'm not saying that, but the way your team's constructed, if you're gonna mostly pay T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow, that is your team. At any point, you're basically banking on those 3 players playing an entire season. But we've seen that Joe Burrow cannot stay healthy for an entire season. So, as a head coach and a GM, you have to have a very, very solid, back quarterback in play. Granted, you probably thought it was Jake Browning. I know he's gotten in some games last year. He made some plays. You might have thought that, if it comes to it, this guy could kind of, hold down the ship. But no, these past 3 games, no. Especially that one he threw to Amik Roberts with the pick behind,
Oh
Jamar Chase.
man.
Bad one. Like I said, you had him. You got to put it on him where the DB can't make a play. And Uno's like, if that was Joe Burrow, that wouldn't have happened. Like I said, it's going to end up being the Russell Wilson thing. You'll see people's body language just, disinterested, don't want to play. It's bound to happen. These are supreme competitors. As a wide receiver, these are ultimate divas. They want the ball every single play. They think they're wide open. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
as part of playing quarterback, you got to keep the team happy. You're the captain of the team, so the bell stops with you. Like I said, I think they definitely have to look before the trade deadline. If you still want to compete, you got to get somebody. If you don't, you basically throw in the towel and say, okay, this season's a wash, which I hate because that's the season's still so young. These people, the entire offseason is so long. You gear up, training, you're ready to have a good season. Jamar Chase is going off triple crown. You think he wants to have a season where he goes, maybe not even 1,000 yards. That's a bad look on him, and it's not even his fault.
Honestly, I think the Bengals would rather lose than
Yeah,
sign Kirk
I mean, at this point,
Cousins or sign Jameis Winston or sign somebody that would actually help them win some games.
oh
Like
yeah, I mean,
that.
I was
That's
saying,
just.
early
I
on, if
agree
that
with you
was
though.
you want to do it, but at this point, no, you might as well just, keep them in there, quote unquote
Let
tank.
them let them run it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
But yeah, I mean, yeah, at this point, I agree. But I mean, to Spencer's point that he was trying to make, when Joe first went down, like, hey, if you're a Bengals fan and you still want to win, get another quarterback.
yep,
They didn't, and they've been losing. So
yeah,
uh, it's exactly how we predicted it. But I don't know. I want more for that team, but they refuse to do anything that will cost them money, like
yeah.
pay Trey Hendrickson or you know.
Which
Oh wait, the offense got paid, but I don't
really,
know. It's
really
just
quick.
yeah. Go ahead.
Remember when I said in the off season, who you think you should pair next to Aiden Hutchinson? That guy Trey Hendrickson. Now imagine those two. Because
Oh my.
both of them had a really good game. If you put because they're both so just like energetic, nonstop. You put both those people on the other side, whew, that would really put them. I know I already said they're the best team in the league over the top. I mean, hey, Bengals. I don't know if you could trade somebody that has a franchise tag. But if you're already looking this bad, you might as well start to offload some people and say, hey, let's get some draft picks. If I'm Detroit, Mr. Hendrickson, you
Yes,
want
sir.
you want to come to Detroit, that would be a nasty duo together.
That would be those two on each edge would be
Mm-hmm.
awesome. The funny thing is the Bengals would do something stupid like pick Jamison Williams. And then they'd have four wide receivers and not know what to do.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean at this point I do think it's just fire sale. You're already so strapped with money, like anybody that's coming up to get a new deal. I said I think you do have to look at, offloading players for, cheaper, contracts that, I think it's something that you have to be done. So if
I
who
think
has the
that
most
team
value,
has
it'd be
hit that
him.
point. Yep.
Oh
They
yes.
they've definitely hit that point where, especially, you paid your offense, so
Yes, you already
you need.
strapped your team to be so top heavy with those three players. They
Hmm.
already have to play perfect on offense. They can't turn the ball over. Have to score in their possession at least at the minimum a field goal. This is how you constructed your team. Now you have to kind of really back said, okay, we still want to compete because these guys are still young. They're still in their prime, so you can't just waste their primes. So yeah, you got to make some moves.
I completely agree. We'll see what happens there with the Bengals. I mean, they'll definitely miss the playoffs. They'll be out of it
Oh
yet
yeah,
again, and we'll see what happens with Zach Taylor after that, right?
yeah.
So, um, this is gonna lead us into our all due disrespect Toph edition. What you got
Okay,
for us, Toph?
this is a rare special edition. I'm usually not here for the Wednesday show, so I don't get to do my all due disrespects. Um, but this is what I've been thinking about for a couple days here now. I don't know if you know, but I got a trade offer in our one of our dynasty leagues, and
Okay.
it's like the one when I have Genty and all of them in it. So
Oh yeah.
not yeah, it's the one that I'm in. I don't think you're in the other one there. Um, so our good old host here, Mr. Double Dose, tried to offer me Dylan Gabriel, Juju, and Amari De DeMarcado, which I think is really
Yeah.
the
Democrat. Yep.
Cardinals' third string running back, who's their first stringer because of two injuries to Trey Benson and James Conner, for my Devontae Smith and Tedero McMillan. Granted, if you never played Dynasty League, this is, you know, you keep them the very next year. And to him, I did say I was, this is when Joe Burrow. No, I don't have Joe Burrow on this team. Penix was on a bye week. Jackson Dart was on the injury report. I guess question, but he played. And I had Trevor Lawrence going up against Chiefs, and I got Bryce Young. So like I said, it was looking kind of dicey. Where I did not play a
Hmm.
quarterback in my offensive players because I was like, I didn't like the matchups. I think I have a better option. So in my eyes, I was, more looking like a Justin Herbert, kind of thing. But it's all for me, Dylan Gabriel, who, granted, I don't even think he's going to start next year because if the Browns end up keep losing, they're mocked to take Lenore Sellers next year, who is a, granted, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but the guy is like body wise, just like, NFL talent. He can run, got a strong arm, like, what you look for. It reminds me of like Anthony Richardson, not nearly as dynamic as Cam Newton, that same kind of mold. So I do think those two guys are not their guys. So I don't want Dylan Gabriel, who I don't think is going to be starting for that team next year. Amari, he's just a third. He's only playing because the other two guys got hurt. And you want to give me old Juju? Now I tell it up the points here, guys. Like, well, I'll get to more story as well too. But Dylan Gabriel, all three of those players out of the 5 weeks combined for 87 points. My two players, who are still really young, Devontae Smith. Granted, Eagles passing game isn't looking good, but it's still Devontae Smith. And literally a first round draft pick this year, the top 10 pick, Terrell McMillan. For me to trade two young wide receivers, my receiver core Alex still isn't even that great to begin with. But for me to get rid of those for old ass Juju, Amari, I even never heard of him before. I seen him at Madden, so I know who he is, but never seen the guy play, or especially because I never seen him dribble the ball before. And Dylan Gabriel, this trade request made me so mad. He had sent me like two texts, like two different days, just eyeball emojis. I don't even know what he's talking about. I didn't respond to it. And then he finally says, "Did you look at the trade offer?" So when I opened up that text message and saw that, Ellie told him, I said, "Are you serious?" I was just a little passive aggressive. I was actually really, that trade made me so mad. I told him, hell no. Then he said, I thought it was a fair trade. I said, you know what? I said, I'm not going to get into this. So
I'm gonna just
Spence,
use you in my all due disrespect.
yeah, we still love you, man. But that trade request was crazy.
Man,
Like I said, that was the ultimate fleece job. All three of those
hey,
guys would not even
Spencer
be
is
playable next year.
Spencer
For me to
is the
get one of those
king of
two,
the
hell
fleece
no.
jobs.
No, he ain't fleecing me. Hell no. So with that being said, your boy Jackson Dart, 1-1. All due disrespect is to our host, Mr. Double Dose.
That's right. And that's a great way to close out the show right there, Toph. Let me tell you what. Spencer's gonna be
Kyle's
pleased as
happy.
hell. All right, let me tell you. I have been the person that screwed him on trades. I traded him Leonard Fournette one season and beat him. I'm sorry, he traded me for Leonard Fournette. He'll correct me on this, I'm sure. He traded me for Leonard Fournette one season, and then I beat him in the playoffs with Leonard Fournette. That next season,
Was this
I
Lenny's
traded.
on the Bucks or Lenny on the Jaguars?
This
Still,
is Lenny on the Bucks.
okay.
Lenny on the Bucks. One of his later
Playoff Lenny.
seasons. Yeah. And I ended up just like popping with him. And then two seasons later in our dynasty, I trade him Lenny Fournette, and what happens? But he just drops nothing but goose eggs as soon as I give him to him. So we had the most ultimate like 360 moment where we both just screwed each other.
Hey, that's what he gets.
Yep, that's what you get. Man has 6 quarterbacks in our freaking dynasty right now. He's
Which, granted, I understand the strategy, but half
I
those guys
do.
are just throwing guys. Like there
Yeah,
comes a point in time when taking too many, you end up losing your leverage.
true.
Like Dylan
True.
Gabriel, I don't see value for him. JJ McCarthy, that guy can't stay healthy.
Mhm.
He
And they
starts the
ain't even
game, then
saying
he's out.
he's going to be the starting quarterback when he comes back. They might make
Carson
it
Wentz
Carson
is.
Wentz. Yeah.
I think that'd be kind of crazy, but
I
the
do
way
too.
Carson Wentz is playing, he's
Yeah, you
undefeated.
never know. Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, stop
Yeah.
taking off them quarterbacks, man. Stop being a
Get
QB
out of here,
hog.
Spence. He is the QB hog.
He
He's
likes to
he's the
trade. That
position
is his
hog,
thing.
man. He's
He
the
is.
leverage hog. He's like, let me just try to do what I can to weasel myself. He should just call himself the Weasel every league he's in. That should just be his name.
Thumbnail gonna put a weasel in his face.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. That's it.
Love you though, Spence.
Yeah, we love you, I guess. No. All right, y'all. That's been another episode from Late Entry. Shouting out anybody who wants to subscribe, like anything,
Tell your
please hit that
friend,
button
tell your
below.
mama, tell your grandma, your auntie, your teacher, your janitor. Tell them
Tell
all.
you how. Anybody. Yeah. We'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace and love.
Peace.